During World War II, the Nazis carried out a systematic extermination of millions of European Jews. When the war ended, thousands of survivors undertook the hazardous journey to Palestine to begin a new life.
I grew up with an image of Israel as a nation that could do no wrong. I believed that after the horrors of the Holocaust, the Jewish people had suffered enough and were entitled to peace in their land. But as time passed, I began to understand that there was a side to Israel that had been left out of the history books. I heard terrible accounts of massacres and other violations inflicted upon the Palestinian population. The reports were always difficult to believe. I had been taught that Palestinians were terrorists, and I couldn't accept that a nation born out of suffering could inflict more suffering upon others without a valid reason. But the sad and disturbing stories continued to haunt me, until eventually I had to come and see for myself.
To say for the Israeli people, if they just really want peace, they must give us our land, our freedom, and that's it.
Travelling in the West Bank Territory for the first time, I was a total stranger in what was to me a mysterious new culture with a different set of rules that needed to be respected. Everywhere I went, I found that Palestinians were extremely warm and very welcoming and were always willing to go to great lengths to help.
We are humans. We want to live. I want to see my children go to schools every morning while I feel they will come back safe.
But I was entering a country that had been torn apart and strangled by years of bitter conflict. The economy was almost at a standstill and unemployment was high.
We are living here in a bad situation. We are very sad here.
I hope that my husband will go to work and come back not worried, not complaining. I couldn't sell anything today. I'm not sure if I can tomorrow buy the food, the bread even.
It seemed a chaotic world filled with rubbish and tragic memories. And I soon learned that beneath the welcoming smiles lay countless stories saturated with sadness and trauma from people struggling to live a normal life under occupation.
In 1989, the Western world breathed a sigh of relief when the Berlin Wall fell, and again when the apartheid system collapsed in South Africa. But on the 16th of June 2002, the same world remained largely indifferent when Israel began building a fence around the West Bank.
The real lesson of the Holocaust for Jews is a craving for security. And they have turned security into a kind of god. This terrible fence or wall which is being built next to here, cutting off this land from the village to which the land belonged, as long as the government can convince the Israeli public that this is for security, this will stop suicide bombers from coming into Israel, it's the end of the debate. Because if it's for security, it's automatically accepted by almost all Israelis. So when we come and say this is not really for security, this is for annexation, this is for taking away the land, it is a very difficult task to convince the Israeli public of this, because what they hear is security, 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 security.
The barrier stands 8 meters high and runs for 650 kilometers around the West Bank. Within built-up areas, it's a solid concrete wall. Across the open countryside, it's an electrified fence and includes 2-meter-deep trenches, roads for patrol vehicles, electronic ground sensors, thermal imaging cameras, sniper towers and razor wire. Movement out of the territory is controlled through a number of military checkpoints and gates. Israel maintains that the fence is a temporary structure designed to protect Israeli citizens from suicide attacks. But close to 90% of its route runs deep into Palestinian territory, resulting in massive land confiscation and aiding the annexation of Israeli settlements. Thousands of olive trees have been destroyed, along with hundreds of Palestinian homes and other buildings such as shops, factories, schools and greenhouses. In places, the wall totally encircles towns and divides communities, adding to transport costs and making it almost impossible for Palestinians to reach their schools or workplaces. Many farmers have been cut off from their farms. Rich agricultural land and essential water wells that once belonged to Palestinians are now on the Israeli side of the barrier.
The fence separated my land. The first part consists of the 2 dunams and the 3 dunams after the fence.
Despite the 2004 International Court of Justice decision that called for removing the barrier and compensating affected communities, the construction of the wall has accelerated.
I was stationed in many different areas in the West Bank. I spent altogether about 7 months in active duty. And, I, as a self-declared leftist and, open-minded individual, wanted to come here and see for myself what really goes on and make a difference.
I travelled along the security fence as it snaked its way from Bethlehem to Calandia, deeply troubled by what I saw. The barrier cut through the urban landscape, isolating communities, exuding an air of oppression rather than any feeling of reconciliation. Under the 1949 Geneva Convention, the use of collective punishment is a war crime. Article 33 specifically states that a person shall not be punished for an offence he or she has not personally committed. Israel refuses to abide by this ruling and has openly adopted the use of collective punishment in the West Bank. The security fence is a prime example. While it stands, any talk of peace is merely a smokescreen for the true nature of Israel's intentions.
It's obvious that people have really struggled here, and it's a really hard place to be in some ways because you really feel that and you feel how people are cut off. But at the same time, I think in Belaine there's more hope than most places. It's become kind of an epicenter of non-violent resistance in Palestine. I don't know if anyone knows for sure if things are going to change here. But the only thing there really is to know, I think and Balean people say that to me, is like we have to do something, you know? If we don't try, like what are we? What are we doing here? Just letting this happen to us, letting us like be caged into these ghettos.
Free Palestine!
This is a demonstration against the wall where we are standing now. In a few weeks there will be a wall 8 meters high, cutting off more than 2/3 of the lands of this village.
Opposition to the fence is gradually increasing within Israel itself. Every week, hundreds of concerned Israelis travel to villages like Balean and stand side by side with Palestinians and internationals to demonstrate against its construction.
Every year, Jews for the last 2,000 years are lighting candles to commemorate the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, this struggle for freedom and independence against foreign rule. But what is happening now is that the settlers who are now occupying Palestinian land and stealing it, and we have come here to express solidarity with the Palestinians who are fighting non-violently to keep their land.
I always thought it was more damaging to refuse orders than it was to perform an order which goes contradictory to your own opinion. Because in the end, we're talking about an army, and while what's going on in the territories right now might not be an existential threat to Israel, or to any country, if there was suddenly a war which would be an existential threat to Israel, soldiers refusing orders would be a death sentence for the country.
The soldiers you've seen are mostly border police, which are regarded as the more brutal, less understanding, and also they're built of, most of them are of lower socioeconomic levels, and this is very related. The oppressed are being the oppressors.
With people like us, what we carrying, our belief that this is our land, whatever they build, the security or the fence, we will gain it. And I'm sure one day they will go back home, but I don't know what they will say for their kids. We were fighting farmers, civilian people.
There are a lot of Jews, people, individuals, have good-hearted, have soft-hearted, and they have care for us, and they are standing by us. We have to admit this fact. But as I told you, we are talking about the administration, about the governments, about the leaders. There are still also among the Jews people who know that this is wrong what's going on, and this is unjust, and we must try to put an end for this conflict and to come back together.
Movement within the West Bank is restricted by a shifting network of military checkpoints and barricades. More than 80 man checkpoints block the roads between Palestinian cities, choking the Palestinian economy and splintering the West Bank into separate enclaves.
When you go with your kids, with your wife, and you reach a military point, you see soldiers always looking at you, hanging with the guns over you. What it means? It means a kind of terror. So the source of terror is not Palestinians, it's inside the Israeli mind.
Military checkpoints are places where Palestinians are continually harassed and humiliated. They are a constant reminder that the Israeli occupation has total control over their lives.
Every day you have to think, how can I reach my work? How can I reach my university?
Immediately if you close a checkpoint, it affects the acutely ill. They can't get through. What you can't so easily count is the number of school days lost and the number of work days lost, and the effects of disrupting a child's education for 5 years. Well, the effects are obvious on a farming community. If they can't get to their land, their crops rot on the field, and that's their whole money gone for a year.
You will see like a teenager soldiers holding guns, showing them like they have the powers to control, to do whatever they want. Even if you are an old woman, they don't allow for you. Even if you are American citizenship or Australian or European at some time, they don't allow for you to pass through the checkpoint. They want to show you that their power, we have the power, we can control everything.
Palestinians are regularly herded into tiny spaces where they are forced to wait before being allowed to pass. They can be detained for hours for no reason. Their goods and personal belongings can be searched, confiscated or destroyed. They can be arrested, shackled and blindfolded, then taken to interrogation centers and held without charge.
Every single level of Palestinian civilization is being fragmented by Israel.
They don't want us to think that we are part of historical Palestine or to have another relation with the other cities, because they want to separate our area to cantons.
Pregnant women in labor have been denied free access to hospitals. Ambulances transporting emergency cases are often denied free passage through checkpoints.
Although we have a patient with chronic renal failure, he needs urgent hemodialysis, and we have to arrive to Ramallah as soon as possible, although they didn't enable us to pass.
A lot of patients died on checkpoints. They would stay for 4, 5, 6 hours waiting for the soldier to give permission to the ambulance to pass. And maybe on the way you pass the first checkpoint, the second checkpoint will stop you.
Palestinian students face restrictions traveling to and from schools or universities. Checkpoint closures often prevent students from attending classes for days at a time.
The Israelis try to undermine education, and it's an ongoing thing, and the students certainly experience it, trying to get to class every day. Have a lot of students arrive late and they'll tell me there was a roadblock or students can't come because of a roadblock or a checkpoint.
They don't want people to be here. So this is at all the universities. You know, you hear again and again, they don't let students through checkpoints, they take student IDs, then they can't travel. You know, not letting teachers, faculty from other parts of Palestine get here to teach their classes. Whatever they can do to make people not want to be here, they consider successful.
It has often been said that the first casualty of war is the truth. This war is no different in that respect. So much of what happens in the West Bank is clouded with misinformation or simply ignored. Each day, Palestinians are forced to suffer under occupation in countless numbers of small ways that aren't sensational enough to make media headlines. But day after day, year after year, the effect is devastating. I was travelling from Nablus to Ramallah. It was a trip that normally took 40 minutes, but already there had been long delays at both Huwara and Zaatra checkpoints, extending the journey to over 4 hours. Riding in the taxi beside me was a school teacher, anxious to reach his class on time. But he was a Palestinian from Farah refugee camp north of Nablus. By the time we reached the third checkpoint, his travelling permit had expired.
Right now you can't go through, I'm sorry. You have to turn back. Everybody else can keep on going.
I crossed all
I understand it. Please turn back. You see there's a lot of problems in here. Please go on. Everybody else can keep on going.
Please do me a favor.
I understand. I can't do you a favor. Please go on.
Please, Khayal. Please. This time.
I can't go through. Kadima.
What could I do now?
Occupation, it's so hard to live under occupation, because they destroy your life, they destroy your feeling, they destroy your everything. Like if you are a student, you will feel khalas, you don't want to continue studying, because it's hard for you to study. Like you need the money for.
You go through the Army's whole education system in training and all this stuff, and you learn this policeman mentality that, look, I might not like what I'm doing, but the reason why I don't like it is from the one cause that I just don't understand it, because I'm not a general, I'm not the prime minister, and I don't understand all the sides of this issue. And the fact the prime minister is democratically elected, and it's a democratic country, theoretically, and everybody has a vote. So the things I'm being called upon to do, theoretically, in the most theoretical sense, come from the fairest of all opinions after a careful weighing of all sides, and that is why I'm being asked to do them. In a very theoretical sense, that is the mentality that you have to take up, because otherwise, you will fail as a soldier.
Over the past 3 decades of occupation in the West Bank, Israel has adopted a policy of planning that severely restricts Palestinians while allocating large areas of land to establish and expand Jewish settlements. Since East Jerusalem was annexed to Israel in 1967, the government of Israel's primary goal has been to reduce the number of Palestinians living in the city.
So in East Jerusalem, they took all these 70 square kilometers of land and they froze the planning.
The Palestinian residents of East Jerusalem are not citizens of Israel, only legal residents who must regularly prove connections to Jerusalem in order to continue to reside there.
What happens is that in order to apply for a building permit, a Palestinian has to pay $5,000.
As a consequence, many Palestinians are compelled to build without a permit.
A lot of people have applied again and again and again, and they just don't get building permits. There's also a lot of people that say, why bother, I'm not going to get it anyway.
Within East Jerusalem and areas of the West Bank under Israeli control, Israel has employed the strategy to demolish Palestinian houses built without a permit.
10,000 houses just in East Jerusalem have demolition order.
In the past 10 years, the authorities have demolished more than 2,200 residencies, leaving more than 13,000 Palestinians homeless.
Now you can see the bulldozers demolishing 2 houses, and they will continue demolishing maybe another 3 houses. And you can see the weather, you can see how hard is it to send families to the street while we are in winter.
It is arbitrary, so no one knows which house is next.
So if they told you that we will come and demolish your home after 24 hours, and you prepare yourself that they will come, then they will not come. Then you will sit inside your home again. Then suddenly they will come and surround the house, as you can see today. At 4 o'clock in the morning they come, or 5 o'clock they prepare themselves, and they come and they surround the area, and they give the family 15 minutes to take their belongings out of their house, and they start demolishing the home.
They are the owners of this land. Israel doesn't dispute the ownership of the land.
We have to pay them for the demolition even. The house is gone, and also you will be in minus because you have to pay the municipality the costing of the demolition.
So they can have the demolition ordered today and have the house demolished tomorrow, whereas a neighbor may have a demolition order for 10 years. That way you also crush the trust within Palestinian society, because Palestinians start thinking, why is this house standing for 10 years and mine just got demolished in 3 days after I received the demolition? Maybe my neighbor is a collaborator as well. If Palestinians are not united, then Israel can do anything it wants with them.
داروا على شرهم كل هدول الجيش يروحوا ان شاء الله بدورهم محدودات اسال الله من عنده.
She sank to her knees and motioned me to raise my camera. All around us, the air echoed with incessant hammering as the machines destroyed her life, leaving nothing but a pile of twisted rubble that was once her home.
If you went to work every day of your life not knowing if your house is going to be standing when you come back, that's a state of fear that is actually very difficult to imagine.
Afterwards, I walked back through the old city. It was an evening like any other. There was no hint of the insanity of what had happened only a few kilometers away. In the following weeks, Ariel Sharon slipped into a coma, and Israel welcomed in a new head of state.
Our aim here is not to confront these soldiers.
We are just asking for our freedom.
Our aim is just to block the bulldozer that destroying our land and uprooting our olive trees.
حتی اگه عوض باشه یه شبم واسط بس باشه بازم بهت دل میبازم با عشق برات پل میسازم تا که بیا به سوی من بشینی رو به روی من لبات به لبام بشینم دستات با من سفر برم
We don't want you to get injured.
I will not close my eyes from this world until I see free Palestine and see my kids playing freely and getting the life that we did not succeed to get.
با عشق برات پل میسازم تا که بیای به سوی من بشینی رو به روی من لبات به لبهام بشینم دستت با من
vast majority of all the army activities that are carried out in the West Bank are for the sake of the security of the settlers. That is the army's mandate in the West Bank. And that's something that I was told at every point, in my army service. Is you may not like what you have to do, but, we are here to defend the settlers and we will defend them. You may not like the settlers, and in Arron we hated the settlers, but, you were there to defend them, doesn't matter what.
There are currently 121 Israeli settlements and approximately 102 outposts in the West Bank. These settlements support a population of up to 462,000 Jewish settlers, 40% of which live in the settlement blocks close to Jerusalem. Settlements are linked to Israel by an extensive network of Jewish-only bypass roads. Many settlements are located in strategic areas, capturing vital resources such as water and agricultural land. Settlers living in the blocks surrounding Jerusalem largely identify as economic settlers. Those who identify as ideological settlers are committed to staying on their land. These settlers regularly carry out violent attacks against Palestinians with complete legal immunity, often with the support of the military.
It's really hard life. You can see there is a settlers beside us, and there is the Palestinians here. Because of 10 families of the settlers, they closed all of the ways to the Palestinians. The Palestinians must carry their bottle gas on their shoulders. They must carry their own goods to reach them to their houses, also by hand and on their shoulders. The students must go alone also, and there is no cars. But the settlers on the other side, it's allowed to them to drive their cars until they can reach their houses, but the Palestinians not. When you come here, and you can see what happened, when the settlers are attacking the Palestinians, the soldiers must protect the settlers, not protect the Palestinians.
The settlers are they are the unrestrained id of the Israeli psyche. Like, they have no constraints. And if you try to put a constraint on them, they'll spit in your face.
To accommodate the settlers in Hebron, a large part of the city has been closed to Palestinians.
They have got some soldiers, military army on top of there and on top of the other side to watch them and to protect them and to look after them day and night.
In general, being in Hebron is the situation where the army really is caught in the middle. With the Arabs being as extreme as they are, and the Jews being even more extreme, and the army kind of being there just trying as hard as they can to separate one side from the other, with little success. No matter what you do, you're hurting someone. You can step on the settlers' toes or you can step on the Arabs' toes, but in the end, you're just making the situation worse, and you feel like the army being there is a bad thing. But on the other hand, it would probably be an even more worse thing, to let the two sides kind of go at it. So in that situation, we were really caught in the middle, and there were a lot of crises of confidence and conscience among many of the soldiers in my unit, and people really did not know what to do because they felt they were wasting their time.
And I'll show you some of the rubbish and some of the garbage. The one they do throw it on top of us, we had to protect ourselves and to put some fence here on our shelves, not to let the stones and the garbage to come down on us.
I was arrested on the 19th of January in Tel Rameda. The police who arrested me are police that I've seen on almost a daily basis in Tel Rameda, and they know who I am. They've seen me working on the streets, they've seen me protecting Palestinians, they've seen me trying to intervene in settler attacks. These settlers who have attacked me, who have attacked Palestinians, who throw stones, nothing happens to them. The police and all their efforts and all their resources, they don't focus this on the settlers. Instead, they focus it on those of us who are trying to do what the police in fact should be doing.
They want us to be silent, to attack us and to be silent, to harass us and to be silent, to occupy our lands and to be silent.
They want to push us from here. They don't want anybody here. They want everybody to leave it. Shopkeepers or people who lives in houses.
Only by stepping beyond the wall can you ever begin to understand what happens here. For in the Western media, facts that seem clear are in fact quite twisted, and so it takes time to recognize the lies that masquerade as truths. At all times, Israel is in control, even when everything seems out of control. Behind the scenes, Israel is constantly undermining and provoking, pulling Palestine in 1,000 different directions, all the while hiding behind its media persona of the innocent victim.
A suicide bomber also hit at a checkpoint in the West Bank. 3 people were killed.
During the run-up to the elections, rumours of corruption within the PA disillusioned Fatah supporters.
Okay, like me, I am Fatah, but I voted for Hamas.
Palestinians across the West Bank were also infuriated when Hamas candidates polling in East Jerusalem were suddenly banned and arrested.
Within hours of the announcement, trouble on the streets of East Jerusalem.
The inevitable backlash was a landslide victory for Hamas, which produced a predictable response from Israel and its allies.
Israel's acting Prime Minister says he will not negotiate with what he calls an armed terrorist organization.
If your platform is the destruction of Israel, it means you're not a partner in peace.
The settlements continue to grow regardless of international condemnation.
Where we are now in Yanun is a perfect example of places where there's problems because of settler violence.
Last week they were beating one of the old people because he's speaking Olive. They beat him till he bled and they broke his chest by a stone, big stone.
I'm ashamed that people like this live in Israel, the people from Itamar, because the people here are peaceful farmers, ancient Arab, that don't want any problem. Just want to work their land.
In Yanun village, they were beating him by the M16 in his face and they broke his nose.
Settlers every time make big problem and danger for me. I go to this field and danger for me. I go to my trees, my olives.
The ideological settlers claim that God gave them this land, and so they constantly provoke and harass their Palestinian neighbors.
When we were picking olive last year, they killed 2 persons. Without any excuse, خلص. They killed 2 persons because they were in this land.
I can't imagine how it must be to live like this for years and years with this feeling that one night maybe the settlers come and burn your house or hurt your children.
These settlers are one of the more sinister tools of the occupation and play a major role in Israel's overall plan to remove Palestinians from their land.
I think if you took the army out of the West Bank right now, there's a large possibility that, we'd all be reading in the news tomorrow about, angry mobs attacking all these settlements and everything. I don't care if you hate settlers, but it's a horrible thing to massacre innocent people, So, so the army, I think, has to be there in order to defend these people.
Those settlers don't even deserve those soldiers. And those soldiers ain't so great, but they don't even deserve them. They're so, all their projected strength and hatred and racism and just blinding, just horrible.
I absolutely believe that we have an equal right to Palestinians to live here in this land, but I don't feel we have certainly a greater right. And therefore it's my obligation as a rabbi to uphold the highest values of our Jewish tradition, which leave me feeling profoundly disturbed, embarrassed, and angry when I see the many ways in which we're using our superior military and economic power to violate Palestinian human rights.
But that's Zionism. That's part of the situation of always trying to keep this sort of cauldron brewing, even when it's so obvious that it's completely racist and just has no future.
Definitely a factor in perpetuating the occupation is misinformation and Israelis' deep racism and sense of superiority, towards Palestinians, and belief and fear, immense fear, that's conditioned from pre-infancy, from the second they were born, to know that these people are all bloodthirsty, violent, all they want to do is kill him only because he's a Jew.
I disagree with the army at this point going into Balata, because I think, just killing terrorists is going to give way to more terrorists.
What I hope is just for the refugee camps' children to have a normal chance. Most of them, they don't have any chance. Most of them.
There's 30,000 to 35,000 people here, and more than half of them are children. And a huge proportion of those children are very damaged.
All what we do since 1948, okay? It's just reaction. It's reaction to occupation. We are occupied. We didn't go to a place or to a country where people were living there, having their normal life, and trying to kick those people out of their houses. That's what they did with us.
In 1948, the newly proclaimed State of Israel encouraged the influx of European immigrants to build up its military strength. Militia groups were mobilized and so began the systematic ethnic cleansing of Palestinian lands. Hundreds of Palestinians were massacred. More than 670 Palestinian towns and villages were depopulated, forcing around 750,000 refugees to flee to nearby countries. Palestinians who dared to return were executed. Entire villages were demolished. Crops were burned and water wells were poisoned. A political policy was then established that stripped Palestinians of their rights. The process was completed with the help of archaeologists and biblical experts who renamed the Palestinian geography, erasing Palestinian historical connections for all time. Refugee camps were established in Syria, Jordan and Lebanon to accommodate the thousands of homeless Palestinians. The West Bank, now under Israeli military control, has 19 official campsites. What began as tented encampments have now become overcrowded ghettos. Balata is the biggest of these camps, housing some 20,000 registered refugees.
A lot of the families are very poor and they just live on simple starches, bread and rice all the time, and very little protein. There's more than 15,000 school children here and they don't even have a playground other than at the school. There is not a tree for them to climb. There's nowhere other than the streets for them to play. And a lot of the houses here in the camp have no natural daylight. Off the two main streets, the houses are surrounded on three sides. As they go up, they build further and further out into the streets and closer to their neighbours to get as much space as they can. There's a shortage of water. There's very good pure groundwater in the area, but the nearby settlements pump it out at an unsustainable rate. So there's not enough water here in the summer for people to shower and wash themselves, never mind their homes and their streets. But there's no recycling here, but because of disputes with Israel, they're not allowed to use landfills. Palestinian rubbish is just disposed of either by burning or by being left out on the land. Outside the camp, the rubbish is just dumped, and that includes the food waste, the carcasses from the animals they slaughter, and people's bathroom waste, because the drain's not good, so they throw the toilet paper out with the rubbish. You've got to look at the place and see that society here is so depressed and worn down that sometimes they don't even have the spirit left to care that they're living in the middle of their own rubbish.
We were 10 minutes away from going into Balata, and in the end they cancelled our mission. But, I mean, Balata is well known to be probably between the 2 or 3 most dangerous places in the West Bank for Israeli soldiers. And it's known to be kind of, a terror network inside there. They call it the Ken Mechablim, the nest of terrorists.
Language plays an important role in justifying this war. The Jewish militia who resisted the German assault on the Warsaw ghettos during World War II are rightfully remembered as freedom fighters. But Palestinians defending their ghettos against the Jewish assault are suddenly branded as terrorists. Westerners are often too quick to judge when they see a Palestinian with a gun. Critics are eager to voice their opinions of these fighters, forgetting that in most cases they are merely mimicking the Hollywood construct. But whichever way you choose to interpret this situation, understand that Israel created it.
Know what is the reason he became a fighter. They are occupied. Their lands is occupied. people, their friends killed, their families killed, or they destroyed their houses. And it's a lot for like 20 years old person, like he lost his father or his brother and his friend and destroyed his house, and every time like army make a problem for him. So for sure he's gonna be one of the fighters.
I hesitate to call them fighters. I prefer to call them resistance because of the armed resistance, because they're not aggressors. They're not going to other people's homes and attacking them. They are shooting back when the fourth largest army comes and attacks them.
The refugee camps are the forgotten communities. Israel has taken everything from these people, their homes, their land, and often their loved ones. With little chance of a hopeful future, these men continue to resist the occupation in the only way that remains open to them. And for this, the camp pays a heavy price.
Because when the military's attacking, it's all-consuming. It's the only thing that you can deal with. And once that eases a little, you've got to go back to thinking of work and education and future. How do these people do that? There's no prospects. Unemployment in the camp is so high.
Palestinians living in these camps have struggled with 60 years of dispossession. They have been exiled to a life of poverty and constant harassment. Israel seems determined to make these people suffer, but the more they are made to suffer, the more resistant they become. The right to return is a basic right derived from the sanctity of private ownership. The right to return is an affirmed right under UN Resolution 194 and has been repeatedly confirmed by the international community over 110 times during the past 50 years. Israel refuses to recognize any rights these refugees may have. And to make matters worse, the occupation is destroying the very structure of this society. It's gradually crushing any sense of hope and is teaching children the terrifying lesson that guns have the ultimate power, that guns command respect.
Imagine like 10 years old kids saying for you, I want to be a fighter, I want to be a wanted. Imagine how is how they grown up.
It's so obvious to me how Israel has manipulated things. It's obvious to me that they came in, they attacked all the conventional and traditional power structures here because it was a very old-fashioned patriarchal society. People respected their elders, particularly the men. The checkpoints in the invasions, they humiliate the men, and particularly the older men. So the children grow up seeing their fathers and their respected figures continually humiliated. There's no social structure to cope with that. All the children see is that the 18-year-old soldiers with guns have the power.
I no longer know what to say without sounding biased, except to say, don't take my word for it. Please go and see for yourself. Walk amongst these people and come to your own conclusions.
أهم شيء مثلا المعتقلين ما جابوش سيرتهم ما خرجوهاش
and they don't speak about them.
بنفس الوقت بيقولوا بدنا نفرج بيعتقلوا أكثر من اللي بدهم يفرجوا عنه.
Talk with the so-called terrorists. If you come in peace, you have nothing to fear from these men. Maybe then you will discover, as I did, that they are sincere people who are simply defending their homes and families. Exactly what anyone would do given similar circumstances.
شو بصير عندنا بشوفوا شو بصير عندهم على هذا الأساس بحكموا. لو يجي يعيشوا أرض الواقع بشوفوا الحق عند مين ومين الظالم.
The occupation is the problem. And what people call terrorism is a symptom of the problem.
We're back to the same point. They want land without people. They don't want us to be here. They don't want us to live here.
There is around 850 administrative detainees in the Israeli prisons. They arrest you without any charge, without any details, without any trial. They take you to the prison, send you for 6 months, and after that they renew that as they want.
And you don't know, this year you saw me, maybe next year will then see me, maybe tomorrow. You don't know. You know, if they know that I'm working with those international to show them that the reality here, I will be in the jail for at least 6 months. At least 6 months. Or maybe they will give me 5 years or 3 years or 2 years.
Some people, they spend 5 years, 6 years like this, without trial, without charge, without anything. Sometimes they extend your detention 1 hour before you release, before you finish, your time. Your family waiting for you, your children waiting for you. And after that, they receive news that you got, for instance, or you get a new extension.
I don't know. If you will see the mothers here, how they are suffering. And for example, my mother, when I go outside, all the day she will be worried. Because she don't know if I will be back or not.
They don't tell you anything, or they don't explain why you are here.
2 of my brothers who were in jail, and I know how they come into one's house, what they do. I know the details.
There is no fair trial. There is no legal guarantees for their rights.
I am 26 years old and I am second-year student because I was in jail. I spent 2 years and 8 months in jail, and that's make me sad because I couldn't finish my education early.
Anything related to the Palestinian and the occupied territories, it doesn't work fairly. It works on the Israelis only, on the Jew only. This is the system of Israel. Torture, it's a policy. And Israeli, they don't hide this. And they give themselves the right to torture the prisoners. They beat them when they arrest them, the soldiers. They beat them inside the interrogation centers. They isolate them for 50 days, sometimes 60 days, without allowing lawyers to visit them, their family to see them or to visit them or to hear anything from them. Sometimes they used music. They put loud music. For 24 hours, for instance, in your head. Sometimes they use another method. They put very strong light in your cell, very small cell. They isolate you for 20-30 days without speaking any words with you, for instance, like that. Just threaten you to bring your wife, to bring your mom, or to destroy your house, or something like this. Sometimes they arrest children. Under 18 and under 16 sometimes. They beaten them because they know that those children, maybe it's an easy, to deal with them. When you beat them, sometimes they try to deal with them to be collaborators.
Maybe they will arrest me tonight because I'm gonna cause a problem in the future of Israel.
There were many times where I felt that, things that we were doing were a little bit over the top and probably not, the things which are going to stop imminent terrorist attacks, and we're just doing more damage than they probably solve.
They were like occupied house. There is 5 families inside the house, and they were army from 5 o'clock in the morning till now, like it's 7 nearly now, and they left the house now.
In some cases, the houses have been searched multiple times in the past year, and they kept a record of these things. So I thought it was kind of a little bit ridiculous. But, it was with the sole intention of finding weapons. The searches were done in a business-like and professional fashion, and that people were not being hurt, and the property was not being damaged. So I thought, again, it was more than I think a Palestinian family should have to bear to have soldiers come in, at, 9 or 10 o'clock at night and search their house, for 10 minutes. Obviously, emotionally, that's a lot to bear for, a family. And I wouldn't like it if they came into my house and did that. On the other hand, I feel like that was security motivated. And, and because of that, I didn't have a problem doing it.
It's not just the killing of political leaders, it's not just the fragmenting of the physical territory, but it's also the controlling of every aspect of life.
As you know, I've articulated the vision of a Palestinian state, a democracy living side by side with Israel, and I think it can happen.
The Israeli army regularly invades the towns and cities. Buildings are destroyed. Innocent civilians are often killed or injured. Homes are occupied. Adults are humiliated. Children are left traumatized.
Their tactic now is to go into towns and villages looking for people, because there's always somebody they want to get. And these are orchestrated military operations. They're serious, they're prepared to kill people, and they'll shoot anybody.
Palestinians are often used as human shields. Palestinians on the army's wanted list are targeted and assassinated without a trial.
We've come together this week because we share a common goal. 2 democratic states, Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace and security. To all those in the Middle East who wish to live in freedom and peace, we stand with you.
When the political rhetoric peels away, you're left with a very different reality than the one Israel presents to the world. Palestine is a shattered country, filled with shattered lives. The more I learn, the more it seems obvious that the occupation is nothing less than a slow but deliberate form of ethnic cleansing, obscured by a deceptive media campaign. Behind the theatre of handshakes and promises, more and more of Palestine is stolen each day. Israel talks of peace, but the very word appears to have become no more than a euphemism for oppression.
The only way to have a long-term future, long-term security in this region is to become accepted as part of the region. And the wall and everything that's happening here is pushing us exactly in the opposite direction.
Palestinians don't understand how the West can turn a blind eye to their suffering. They don't understand how the USA can stand for peace and justice, yet it supports the occupation and the systematic destruction of their country.
We are living in the peaceful village here in Zababdi, and this building is a Rabia 1 building. The students of the American Arab School in Zababdi live here. And suddenly we were surrounded by the Israeli army, and then they suddenly started firing their weapons from all surrounded of this building.
I don't think at all there's an army mentality or normal human mentality to open fire on a non-combatant. I think it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? I can't ever imagine any situation in which anyone I know in the army would ever do that. So I don't really feel, on a personal level, I don't feel emotionally disturbed by the fact that I was once part of a body which has killed children. Because I know that I would never do that. I know that everyone that I know would never do that. And I know that those things that happen are purely accidental.
But those soldiers who were robotic, who were who didn't want to make up their mind and didn't want to think about what they're doing, it takes them a very long time. I mean, years and tens of years to start understanding what they've been doing, and it's devastating for some of them.
The war on terror has become such a familiar concept, but the world fails to notice that here, the real underlying terror comes from Israel.
The problem is Israel has to keep a conflict going to justify its existence. Because if there's no conflict, then there's no need for Jews to form their own little separate group. And there's no need for Jews to leave anywhere or be threatened.
Sometimes it's necessary to stop and think. If Israel really wanted peace, then it would give back some of what it has taken.
And I wish for every country to be occupied from Israel to see what they are doing here. And I wish if they will be occupied, the other countries outside, to show them the reality here, the life here, to know who is those people.
There
as an American Jew, one, generally you're very uninformed, and two, you're raised also to be very informed about anything threatening to Jews, primarily Holocausts and anything that sort of, from there on.
Altogether, the Holocaust has not had a purifying influence on the Jewish people, unfortunately.
People in my family and elsewhere, they're so wrapped in fear. They're so wrapped in just emotional identity-based, issues and trauma and perceived trauma and passed on trauma and,
Actually, there have been studies made about how Israeli children react to a visit in Auschwitz and other extermination camps. And the research has shown that about 3/4 come away with the conclusion that after what the Germans have done to us, we must do everything to save the Jewish people, and everything is allowed to us. And there are no moral limitations to what we are doing, because compared to what the Nazis have done to us, all these things are negligible.
Up to 11 million people were murdered in the concentration camps scattered throughout Germany and Poland. 6 million were Jews. What the Nazis did during their reign of terror truly was evil. But the strange thing about evil is that sometimes it sticks to those it touches, drawing them further into the darkness and shaping future generations in unexpected ways.
A child which is beaten does not turn into a good father or mother.
For in Palestine, the once oppressed have become the oppressors, and the bitter memories of the Holocaust are seeding the ground for a new cycle of violence.
You will see them explode your door before they will enter, without any questions. If they attack the building here because of one person, they will kill 20 person because of one person.
The Israeli soldier, when they come and killed someone, they return to their family and live their life normally. But they don't know what they leave behind them. He makes something in one moment, he shoot and go. After that, the rest of the life of this family is very, very sad, it destroy.
I cannot forgive. I cannot forget. Never ever in my life. My friend Khalil, when I went to his body, it were pieces. There is no face. There is no body inside. I can't forget it.
And it's really bad. I feel horrible that children are being killed. I feel even worse that the mothers are keeping their children inside, because it's a war out there, you know what I mean? I think in a war, where you have two sides fighting each other, inevitably people are going to get caught in the crossfire.
The fighters, let's say it's okay, but don't kill kids, don't kill women, don't kill old people. When someone occupied your house, killing you, attacked you, kill everything in your life, what he wants? He wants me to be silent all the time? Never. We cannot accept it.
The only thoughts come to my mind, what mother is crying now? What father is crying now? What children now have no father?
I came to this country with an open mind, not knowing what to expect. But I left feeling deeply troubled and thinking that there will never be peace until Israel stops lying to the world.
Again, I feel very similar as if I had started, as I did when I started, which is that if it wasn't me standing at a checkpoint, if it wasn't me searching out the people's houses, then it would be someone else, and someone who was likely to do a lot worse of a job than I would. You know, I feel that things that I had to do in the army, I did with, you know, professionalism and understanding, as much as could have been asked for in that situation.
Of his children now ready to bomb himself because his father had been killed. I'm sure every time Israel killed one of the Palestinians, there's at least 5 thinking to take the revenge. This is a big problem. Every time one had been killed, Israel create 5 who is ready to revenge and bomb himself.
And my feeling about the bombers is that this is, you know, a young person who absolutely feels that they have no future here. And basically they have no future anywhere. They're fed up, angry, in incredible trauma about what they have experienced. Often the loss of somebody close, a brother, a sister, a mother, a cousin they were close to, you know, some kind of death in the family. And this is their moment of control.
I can't rationalize these things anymore. And I couldn't then, but I really can't now. I can't say that to my friends there, well, I understand it's tough for you with this wall there, but you're just going to have to deal with it because, your whole people have been criminalized and you can't do anything about it.
I'm not a Holocaust survivor, and perhaps I can never really understand what it feels like to be part of a people so brutalized. But brutality only breeds more brutality, and using the Holocaust as a justification for the ongoing cruelty, relentless aggravation and murderous acts of aggression is unforgivable.
The more disaffected youth you have, the higher the risk of more bombings in Israel. This equation really, I think, is obvious.